before we get to question number one, I just want to ask another question since we're on the topic. How many of you have a very mixed feelings about Christianity? In the sense that, I personally have a love-hate relationship with it. There are certain things, certain mystics or scholars, Richard of St. Victor, that I really adore. And on the other hand, a lot of things that I absolutely despise with a fiery passion.
Christianity is wonderful. It's the Christians that are the problem.
Well, it's true. It's true.
Well, that refers to that famous quote of what's his name, the saint in India, and he said, "I love your Christ, but I do not like your Christians. They are so unlike your Christ."
Yeah.
Here, here.
It reminds me of the quote from Nietzsche, where he said there was only one Christian and he died on the cross.
Well, yeah.
I don't think that's quite true, but there were other Christians who.
No, I get it.
I think there still are, actually.
Oh well, sure.
But there's a lot of degeneration and decadence and deviation and whatever,
Well, I wouldn't say I have a love-hate relationship with Christianity. I think some of the formulations as we've received them are problematic, but the real division is between what the possibilities of Christianity versus the possibilities of the Christians. It's the human beings that always get in the way. One could turn the doctrine into something good if one, were determined to do. I mean, what I'm saying is it could be viewed as good and implemented as good if you, had a good heart. But as long as you're worried about what's mine and what's not mine and who's going to take it away, you've doomed your religion if you connect your religion to that kind of thing.
Well, I think you can look at a number of traditions and you can find a lot of problems.
I agree.
Especially in this day and time.
Yeah, exactly. None of them are new.
I think seeing the deterioration of these spiritual means of the different traditions that corresponds to the latter stages of the Kali Yuga.
Well, and time erodes things anyway.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a way out of that by reading Confucius, Ovid, the sayings and life of Apollonius of Tyana, maybe some of the writings of Richard of St. Victor, and certain poets from various traditions. You can get out of that. And, as Swami Vivekananda said, let each person have their own religion. If there's 1 million people, let them have 1 million religions.
Right. You can say that, but that you're going to get everybody to agree with you to a sufficient majority to, in fact, institute it.
I think one of the problems that we have with Christianity, as we understand it, is that what we see is so far from what it was.
Yes, exactly. It has fallen.
Well,
for most people.
Well, but it's actually become its inverse. I
Yes.
mean, the earlier you go, the more you look to the earliest sources, the more mystical it was and the less legalistic and law-bound it was.
That's
And
right.
now, essentially, it's become the thing that it fought against.
Yes, exactly. I've run across a number of sincere religious authors who, talked about that. There's I think a book called Christians Against Christianity that I think makes that point pretty well. But actually on, I think MSNBC, or I think it was the other night, I basically heard, although it was in English, they were talking about religious tolerance and stuff. And I basically, and I think they had 2 Muslims in the panel. Anyway, somebody pointed out, Lakum dinukum waliya din. Unto you is your religion, and to me is mine. And enunciated it as a principle that without which there would be all this strife between the religions. Yeah. So I mean, at least the Quran has a possible way out of the problem.
Yes. Well, and of course, an acknowledgement of there being multiple expressions of the divine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that the same person on the panel made some reference to the Muslims having acceptance of Jesus, and it wasn't quite the same opposition that one might think. It was pretty refreshing to hear that on television.
All of the people that I know, and in the circles I move in that are Christian, I have no problem with them.
Well, the Eastern Church,
me, I don't know what, they know I'm a perennialist.
yeah.
And they know that I find all of the aspects of the Christian spiritual path quite understandable.
Yeah. Sounds like you hang out with Christians.
Orthodox.
And not.
Yeah, yes, but I think you've defined the difference.
Monastic.
You talked about the Christian spiritual path rather than some sort of identification.
Yes.
Right.
Identification ruins everything.
With hardly anybody that isn't, I guess, what you would consider of the exoteric, the esoteric, aspect of Christianity.
Well, the Eastern Church has preserved that mystical aspect better than anybody else. I don't know about the Ethiopians and the Coptics and everybody, but that's all Eastern anyway. So
yeah, you can't ask everyone to be an esoterist.
No,
but there has to be a way of preventing people from trying to kill those who don't believe or see things differently.
Right. I think more in the Eastern Church, you're likely to find a priest who teaches kind of matter-of-factly what the standard liturgy and the changes in it according to the calendar and standard stuff. But if something comes up that's esoteric or even universalist, you may see him wink at you.
But I go, to the monastery there in Kindalia, that's not far from here, and have coffee with them. They always are we have interesting conversations, and we don't really get on anybody's nerves.
Yeah. Well, that's the way it ought to be.
Yeah. So
it is some places for some people.
And that monastery is built on what was at once a Muslim institution.
Are you talking about in the U.S.?
They have a graveyard there in that Muslims come to see their loved ones that passed away in the past.
Where is this? Where is this?
Texas, Central.
Yeah.
Really? I thought it was only in the old world that they'd been building temples on top of temples. So,
they built a cathedral out there. It's really nice.
Sure.
I've gone to the service there several times. You have to leave at certain points because there are certain secret things that are expressed in the liturgy of the monastics that is not supposed to be given publicly. But at any rate,
I like that.
Then you can come back in, then they take you and feed you and whatever else. And So I see how it can be. But what is being said is that a lot of the people who think they are Christians have abandoned a lot of the more interior aspects of the tradition.
Yeah, they think they have the right belief and that's all they need.
Right.
And they think that's all there is.
And if anybody believes something else, they're just wrong.
And people tend to think that beliefs should be static, and that's part of the problem. I think a belief should be dynamic.
Well, and people don't even begin to think about the difference between belief and knowing, or even belief and faith. They, you know, when people say my faith, they usually mean my beliefs.
You know, they have little concept of the level of knowledge that would correspond to the spirit and the intellect.
I don't think anybody should be able to graduate from probably grade school without having received some instruction on epistemology.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big thing. They talk about, you know, hoping people could learn media literacy. Well, it's thought literacy that they need. You know, it's to recognize that it's a big deal to say, I know. You just don't say that flippantly.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's different levels of what people understand know to mean.
Yeah, they mean believe almost every time.
Yeah, they believe of something that's of the human mental capacity, not what transcends it, not what makes the soul.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that distinction between knowledge and belief is critical.
Yes, it is, exactly. It's like a belief is just having heard an opinion from somebody and thought, that sounded good.
I'll make it my own.
Yeah, exactly. Now I believe it because I trust the person that said it. I'm sorry, but
And if I'm a scholar, I can get lots of language to repeat.
yeah, I mean, if for you beliefs are not tentative, as Seda said, you know, they can't be static. If your beliefs aren't changing, you're not learning anything.
Well, that's what concerns me about AI. I think AI transform people's thought to such an extent that they won't be able to get outside of its web.
No, that's right. They've already expressed that willingness by, you know, listening to people's opinions as their source of truth.
Right.
And the technology will give a certain imprimatur of less fallibility, let's say.
Well, yeah, like we say right now ourselves, we go to the internet, consider a lot in order to find information. But that's because some of the information that is there is still real.
Yeah.
But once AI controls it all, it's going to be manufactured.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be harder and harder to find, you know, to find that needle when AI is heaping the hay on the stack.
That's right.
But, you know, fortunately, some of what AI produces will be correct.
It will be believable.
Well, and it might be correct on the level of facts and things like that.
Yeah.
About a month ago, I spent about an hour and a half with a couple of other people. My younger daughter has this woman friend who's a lawyer, and she had Chinese American. She'd subscribed to the new AI chat box or something for $20 a month, and so she was showing. There were a couple of us there at the house, showing us, you know, ask this question, ask that question, and so forth. So I saw her again, I think Sunday, and I said, you know, I've read that if you use that AI stuff, it gets to the point where it captures your soul and controls everything you do. As I said, has that happened to you yet? And she said, No, that version is still in the beta form. They haven't really brought that out. And I said, well, I've also read that it turns your mind to mush. Have you noticed that? And she said, no, that was TV did that. She said, watching television.
Well, yeah. Pretty soon they'll have AI generating the television shows.
Well, that's right.
You won't need any announcers. They'll all be simulated.
It'll get complete with advertisements and you name it.
It's already happening. One of the German tabloids, it just came out this morning. I mean, it's not a major newspaper, but a tabloid. But still, they laid off over 1,000 people and are replacing their writers with AI.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'd heard of that, and it's particularly appropriate for a tabloid.
Yes.
But
I hope they go the way of Budweiser beer.
yeah, well, I don't know. I think Budweiser beer maybe has more staying power than a lot of other things. We'll see.
Well, I know we're right out of time, but I was interested in responding to that first question, if anybody would.
Yes. Yeah. So
because I've got some expertise I can share.
all right. So question 1 after 49 minutes. Is there a form of meditation that you think is particularly valuable, but which the Tariqa does not integrate into its practices? If so, could it be integrated?
Oh, meditation. I misread it. I thought the question was mediation. I misread it.
Or medication.
We could use some of that too.
Well, let me just say what I was going to say about mediation, and we can come back to the real question later. My wife specialized in conflict resolution and spent, she focused in on teaching junior high and some senior high and even some elementary school kids how to become peer mediators, so they were trained to sit down with a couple of students that were having a dispute and helping them resolve it through mediation. And but I learned just from being around her, so while she was learning all this stuff, that you have the state sets up courts, and you have judges, and they can compel people to appear and be judged because somebody else has complained, and the judge's ruling can be enforced with various ways. But then you have arbitration, which is basically a judge, except that it's an informal thing. You have to consent to it somehow. Usually you end up signing it.
But you end up being bound to it.
Yeah, but you can't be taken to arbitration unless you somewhere agreed to that. And agree to abide by the result. I guess if you don't abide by the result, you could be sued for breach of contract. But
have you looked at any of the usage licenses for software or limited warranties for products?
They say, yeah, any dispute you have with us, it has to be submitted to arbarbitration, and we'll pick.
Yeah, exactly.
We've
already signed.
Anyway, let me go beyond that. Then you get into mediation and facilitation. Mediation, you have somebody who's trained to help people resolve difficulties, but both parties, let's say you have 2 parties, it could have multiple, but the parties have to agree to participate in the mediation. And then the mediator doesn't say the decision is this. They just help them sort of facilitate, help the discussion, and occasionally they may get to a point and say, well, they might even take one person aside and, have you considered this as a resolution or a solution, or have you considered that? I mean, the mediators, they've come to certain opinions about what might be a fair resolution of the issue and just kind of suggest it, but they can't enforce it. It has to be, the point is to reach an agreement between the parties in dispute.
And you can help each party understand the other party.
Yeah, but because they're sitting all in front of the mediator in the same room, and you may have private conversations in side rooms. And then there's facilitation, which that's a slightly different thing in which the what might be the mediator doesn't ever make any suggestions about how the issue should be resolved, but just tries to be a chairman or a neutral party. In every case, you have to have a neutral party running this. So that these various forms of mediation and facilitation, et cetera, but there are lots of ways. If people are interested and will volunteer, and sometimes they have to be encouraged or persuaded to participate. But if they do, then that often works to resolve disputes. But at any rate, that wasn't what your question was about.
No, but I feel compelled to stick in a little anecdote here. I was at a conference, purportedly spiritual, and it pretty much was. And something happened with regard to the ordinary managing of affairs surrounding a coffee machine. And I got really bent out of shape. I had been accused of doing something I hadn't done, I was beside myself. And this woman started talking to me. And after a while, and not too long, she really did talk me down very effectively. And I said, well, that was pretty good. I said, that was masterful. How you did that. And she said, well, I'm a conflict,
resolution specialist.
This is my field. This is what I studied. Anyway, I was duly impressed. Her technique was almost invisible. I mean, I could see it unfolding, but it was a lesson learned, not just about being, angry and getting over it. There was a kind of wisdom that had just been demonstrated to me. It was miraculous in a certain sense. I was ready to kill, and not quite.
Now, then there are certain people that have a gift for that. And one of Marshall's professors said he got into the field one time. He just volunteered to conduct a hostage negotiation, and did it successfully. There was no one else around, but apparently he felt a calling to try to do that. Now that sort of thing gets pretty dangerous. You have to be willing to put your life at risk. Walk in where somebody's got guns and say, let's talk.
Well, this woman obviously had a talent as well as training, but it was just marvelous to watch and experience.
Do you remember any of the particular things that she said that you found really helpful?
She stayed engaged, made plenty of eye contact, and spoke calmly, and but we did talk about the situation, but she never, I don't know. It was magic. It was good.
I'm curious to know what the person accused you of.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It wasn't a terrible thing. It was just not true. Like breaking a rule or something, it doesn't really matter what it was.
Do you remember?
Yeah, but it wasn't a moral issue. It was a very, it was stupid. Now I can get mad about it again.
Just thinking about it makes you mad.
Well, if I let myself get lost in it,
About a week ago, I took my wife to a Starbucks after her dialysis, and we went in there, and we usually divide the check up so that she gets what she wants and I get what I want. And so I went up there and I told them all we wanted. And then I had a $20 bill left over I wanted them to make change from. so that I could give my wife back some of the money, some of the proceeds of our purchases. And they said, no, we can't do that. Our boss, our manager doesn't allow us to make any change except for the purchase.
Yeah.
And you already made the purchase, and so we can't make change for you. $20 bill so that you can have some money to divide up. And I said, all right, fine. I want my money all back, and I don't want to make this order. Now that I have all of my money back, I'm going to make 2 separate, distinct orders, and you will give me change for each one of these. Sure enough, they call the manager out, and he had to concede that was perfectly acceptable. And so that's the way I get my thing at Starbucks every time when we go there. I said, Janelle, give me the money you want to spend on yours, and I'll take the money I want to spend on mine, and I'll go up there and make 2 orders, and I will get change back for each one.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you have to do. I'm surprised anybody has it. They probably just don't have enough cash in there in the store to make change unnecessarily. I mean, people aren't using cash anymore.
Well,
but I don't think the manager trusts the employees either.
Well, that's the other thing. All of these systems are run by computers, and so they can perhaps give change out, maybe, during an order, but afterwards they can't do it because it's a computer system that locks the cash drawer and everything. And even that sometimes they can't do because they have a computer system that tabulates the number of like 10s and 20s and 5s and everything. And so if at the end of the day they have the exact right amount of money, but the wrong number of 10s and the wrong number of 20s, and there are more 10s and fewer 20s, then someone's in trouble.
Even if the dollar amount is the same. That's crazy.
To prevent me from making 2 individual orders and getting change for each one of them.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they only want the cash drawer opened for a purchase. And if it's open for any other reason, it could be somebody's taking money out without a purchase.
Ooh.
But you know what? They trust computers more than people.
They do.
Yeah, people can be terrible sometimes, but also, the problem here is when you have the overriding authority being a computer, yes, it may prevent someone from doing something bad, but guess what else? It prevents people from doing something good.
Yeah.
And in between that black and white, the bad and the good, the vast amorphous mass of people is somewhere in between. And essentially they need freedom and liberty and human agency to have that ability to choose to do good. But you know what? When everything's being controlled for them, they no longer feel they have autonomy. So they're just gonna step into the system and let it take them for a ride.
Yeah, and they may resent it. And if a vulnerability in the system opens up, they'll grab it.
Well, my intention is not to go in there and drop $100 bill on them and expect them to make change for it.
Yeah, I understand.
But on the other hand, I don't, I should be able to make 2 orders and pay for each one of them separately.
Yes, and of course you can.
Yeah.
The problem with the machine is you can't reason with it. And everybody will hide behind the matter-of-factness of the machine, and so that they don't have to make any decisions.
We got through no questions at all today.
Oh, well.
That is pretty sorry.
Well,
but it's been a good time.
I don't know of anything, I don't know of practices myself that I would think of trying to add to my tradition. But then on the other hand, I do know that there are all sorts of different practices within Islam. There's the dervishes. There's, you can go place to place and find all sorts
I'm going to
of
let them talk.